What's up, you guys? I'm here with a new video today, here to give you guys a new episode of Slim Chat, and here on a really cool topic. I posted a status on Facebook asking for discussion topics that I could use for my Slim Chat segment, and just for discussion videos in general, since I haven't done them in a while. And this first one is going to be on creativity versus playing the best deck. I really like this topic because it's something I haven't covered, I think, at all in the time that I've been here on YouTube. I don't think I've ever talked about people that I've talked about going, anti-meta, but I've never talked about creativity versus playing the best deck, because a lot of people kind of have a mentality where they say, I'm going to play the best deck, or I'm going to play the deck that beats the best deck. And usually the deck that beats the best deck is anti-meta. Perfect example would be several formats ago when Dragon Rulers were literally just unstoppable. They were everywhere, and you were most likely going to play the mirror match more than anything if you were playing dragons yourself. The anti-meta deck at the time was Evil Swarm. Now, people would say maybe the anti-meta deck was Prophecy. Prophecy was the second best deck, along with Dragon Rulers. They were the top two decks. Evil Swarm was like the third best deck, but Evil Swarm was the deck that could beat Dragon Rulers. So in a sense, it was the anti-meta deck. It was the, if you were to say creative deck, I wouldn't even give it that title. There's a big difference, I think, between playing a creative deck, playing a meta deck, and playing the best deck, anti-meta deck, and playing the best deck, because they're just like split up into different categories. So we'll look at this format right now. This format's almost over. It ends at Nationals, so we'll look at it right now. I haven't been playing much. I have been trying to keep up with things, talking to a lot of my friends, seeing what's going on, paying attention to what's been topping the ARG circuit series, paying attention to how just regionals and stuff have been going on. And I guess I can honestly say the best deck, or according to the majority of people based on the representation, is Geargia. Now, I guess the reason would be is that it's the most consistent. Geargia is extremely consistent. It's ridiculous. So I guess you could say right now the #1 deck is Geargia. That could easily change upon like the Lightsworn structure deck release. There's a lot of hype and a lot of good reason to say that Lightsworn is going to be back at the top tier status, because let's face it, JD's a bitch. There's no way around it. Like, you can Valor it, okay, cool. You can do a lot of things. If they decree your traps and then JD blow you up and then summon another JD, summon something else, tie for game, you don't have a Scarecrow or Fader or whatever, Battle Stopper or something, that's pretty much it. But right now, let's say Geargia is the best deck. So a lot of people are playing Geargia. The majority of lists I've seen, the majority of tops I've seen are coming from Geargia. They're also coming from Hat, Hands, Artifacts, Trap Tricks, that deck. And I guess another well-represented deck would be Bujin. People were saying that those were the 3 most played decks. Oh, and then actually get the Mythic Rulers in there. So those are right now the best decks, in a sense. And I guess the #1 deck is Geargia. Now, where creativity would come in is not only playing an anti-meta deck that can beat that deck. So there's several decks, I guess, can beat Geargia. Some people just decide to play Geargia anyway and just play out the mirror. Some people will play Hat, hoping that the artifacts in combination with the hands and the trap tricks will be able to beat Geargia. And I guess like the most creative deck that came out was Hat. I think that was really interesting, that you could throw together 3 different types of monsters, make them into a deck that would work. Like, I found that really, really interesting. Never played the deck myself, but I really found it interesting that you would put just like an array of monsters together and they would work. A lot of times, like, people would say, oh, I'm just going to throw this together and, maybe it'll work or it doesn't work. And this was one of the times that like crazy idea actually worked. Now, I wouldn't define creativity as throwing the hands and everything. People have done that. Like, that is literally just like all you see these days. When Madolche's top, there were hands in them. They're even playing Geargia hands. There's hands in the Geargia deck now. They're in pretty much every deck. So I wouldn't call that creativity. I would just say that became a trend. Maybe the very first person who did it, you don't even know if you got recognition for it. You were the first person to think about it. That would be, I guess, creative on your part. But in reality, it became a norm that people were going to either main deck or side deck the hands in the majority of decks that are played this format. So that was kind of interesting to see. Creativity, I guess, could also be trying to play decks that no one's playing right now, and trying to fine-tune them so that you can, take on the meta. So in a sense, playing a deck that you're familiar with, but creating it to play against the meta. I guess a really good example of that would be Geargia from a couple formats ago when Dragons were the best deck. Sam Pedigo basically just threw in every anti-meta trap that would just destroy dragons, Emptiness, Iron Wall, 7 Tools, all these cards that would just main deck in 3 Max Cs, everything that would just stop dragons flat out, and he won Italy with it. The creativity there would be, okay, it was Geargia, it wasn't a well-represented deck at the time, and then the creativity, I guess, as degenerate as people did call it, they did use that word, is that he decided to just throw in the anti-meta traps into the deck and still make the deck work as well as it did. On like the other spectrum, creativity could be playing a deck like Gravekeepers, playing it and, you know, just fine-tuning it so that it can beat the majority of the meta. Has a very good dragon matchup. Necro Valley just pretty much shuts down the dragons, outside of coming, pretty much it just shuts them down, period, unless they're banishing everything from hand, and at that point, once you get over their dragons, they're pretty much losing, they're pretty much out of cards. So Gravekeepers is a really interesting deck right now because, you know, it's not as creative. It is a deck, of course, but you are able to fine-tune it to your liking and to a way that it's able to combat the meta right now. So Gravekeepers is a good example. Necro Valley shuts down a lot of things. It shuts down Boojins pretty much. Outside of Crane, it pretty much shuts down them. They're not able to banish their guys, or so I've heard. Another thing is other decks pop up. One of the best, I think, creative examples would be the Ghost Trick Spirit deck that Jeff Jones, Robert Boyajian, a lot of well-known players played. That was a really creative deck. It came out of nowhere. Ghost Tricks by themselves, pure Ghost Tricks. I believe there was one that topped one of the ARG Circuit Series, also creative. The fact that you're taking a deck that it just isn't well represented enough, isn't even represented at all, and then being able to fine-tune it to a successful finish, being able to throw in your ideas that made it work. And I guess that would be my definition of creativity in this game. It's probably a lot different than other people's because you're not going to run in, outside of locals, you're not usually going to run into a main event and run into a deck you've never played before. I think in all the regionals I had played like ages ago, the most creative deck I ever played against was, it was some kind of anti-meta, like DD Warrior Lady, E-Hero Wildheart deck that literally I couldn't figure out at the time. It was just really interesting because it worked. It used cards like Shrink. It used a lot of old cards that you just didn't expect to come up against at that time in the game, and that was just something that was just like out of the box, like crazy creative, and worked really well for the player who was piloting it. So things like that, they just unfortunately don't happen anymore. I've noticed is that a lot of people are just settling on what they see on paper. They're settling on, okay, if 10 out of the 16 decks are Geargia, I should probably play Geargia. It's probably the best deck. If it was Dragons, they'd play Dragons. Some people look at it and say, oh, only one Boojin topped, but Boojin are still playable. I'm going to play Boojin. 1 or 2 Mythic Rulers topped. Oh, I'm going to play Mythic Rulers. It's all based on what kind of deck and what kind of player you are. I guess another thing I should add is that when it comes to creativity, you have to figure out what kind of player you are, what kind of deck you prefer. If you like a stun deck, if you like a control deck, if you like an aggro deck, if you like when people play stall decks. I think I might get a lot of backlash for this, but I think one of the most creative decks that I've seen has been the Reversal Quiz deck that I did a video on, because I mean, I've never seen Reversal Quiz anywhere. And that could just be me. I probably missed it back when people were trying to make it work, but I have never seen it top an event. I have never seen it represented anywhere, and I think there's 2 or 3 people that have topped with Reversal Quiz, and that's just crazy. That's like out of the box creative, because you know, alternate win conditions are considered degenerate in this game. Obviously, Chain Burn, Countdown, Exodia, etc. But Reversal Quiz was something you never saw, and a lot of people would be like, "Oh, that's bullshit. Oh, that's crazy." But you know, it was creative and it worked for the player piloting it. So in that sense, they were creative enough to use that deck and smart enough to use that deck and fine tune it to a point where it could beat the meta. And that's the thing, is sometimes in order to be creative, you just have to beat the meta. And going full anti-meta sometimes works, a lot of times it doesn't. Sometimes you just have to add some anti-meta aspect to the deck that you prefer. Like, I've seen crazy things where people have been like putting cards in Dark World that I've never seen before main decked. That happens. You know, the majority of players are using, if they're going to combat the meta, they're using cards like Vanity's Emptiness, they're side decking cards like Iron Wall, they're doing a lot of stuff that's already been done before. A lot of the stuff that's happened in the past is repeating itself. I made a video ages ago saying how history repeats itself, how cards that are used at one time are brought back again. Definitely Vanity's Emptiness, Iron Wall, Maxi's always been around, so I'm not going to say Maxi, but those cards like that are starting to come back a lot more. They're seeing a lot more play either in the main deck or the side deck. And the reason is that the format's kind of repeating itself to a point where being able to stop special summons, being able to completely floodgate and lock games wins you games. So I guess I could say that to be creative in this game, you pick a deck that you like. You pick a deck that plays to your play style. Everyone has a different play style. Everyone plays a deck differently. Like, if you put two players together that are running Mermail, or two players that are running Dragons, or two players that are playing Medolce, I can guarantee that one of them is going to play it differently than the other. They're not going to always play it the same. They're going to have different ideas when playing the deck. Even if they run the exact same deck card for card, they're going to play it a little differently. Unless it's like on autopilot, they're going to try and play it differently. They're going to have different plays. They're going to see different things that the other player may not see. And I think that's something that's interesting to pay attention to, is when you have people like in a mirror match. Mirror matches are boring. Like, let's face it, mirror matches are pretty boring. But it's interesting to see if players, like, if they draw pretty equally, if they're going 1-for-1s with each other, it's where the difference is. Like, where do they break up the difference? Where is, like, in the +1 mirror match, you know, where was the break? Where was it they plussed enough to where they were going to have the advantage over the opponent? Stuff like that. The Mermail matchup, the mirror match, the Dragon Ruler mirror match. All those mirror matches, you could see just like different plays being made. And sometimes, let's face it, in the game, in a mirror match, one person's sometimes just going to open better. It's very rare that you both open pretty equal. Someone's always going to be ahead if they set up their cards right. So I want to leave the rest of this video open to you guys. What do you guys think of creativity versus playing the best deck? I feel you don't always have to play the best deck to be successful. I will say that the best decks in the past are the ones that have had the most success, have been the most represented. Now, is that going to continue? Probably. That's how this game goes. Once a deck has established itself as the quote-unquote best deck of the format, people are going to jump to it. It's, you know, it's just something people do. I myself have done it. That if you want to win, if you want to be super successful in a tournament, most people feel you have to play the best deck in order to do that. Sometimes that is the case. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes anti-meta, sometimes a creative deck with anti-meta strategies, sometimes a deck geared towards just playing, you know, just based on your playstyle will be enough to do well. Now, will that continue? Hopefully. I think it's a great thing that people are trying to be creative decks, that they're still trying to bring, you know, I guess, give life to new decks that people wouldn't think of before. So it's interesting to see what will happen in the rest of the game. But that's all I want to say. Rambled a little too much, but I want to leave the discussion in the comments below to you guys. Do you guys like creativity? Do you not like creativity? Do you think players should just, you know, join the bandwagon? A lot of people do it. Majority of people have done it. They've joined the bandwagon at one point or another. And, you know, you can't feel bad about that. It happens. When you see a deck constantly winning, in your mind, you're going to be like, oh, I want to do that too. You know, even if it's just local level, it's like, oh, I want to win locals. Oh, I want to top locals, stuff like that. I want to top regionals. I want to do roll at regionals. You know, maybe I do have to play the best deck. And, you know, you might not even like it. I played plenty of top-tier decks I've never really cared for. I played them once and never played them again just because they don't play to my certain play style. And I think that's something that a lot of you can relate to, is even if you play the quote-unquote best deck and it's just not for you, continuing to play it isn't going to make you a better player. It's going to make you just kind of like a robot, just playing the deck that everyone else is playing. But when you play a deck that you enjoy and that you understand and that plays the way you want it to play and controls the tempo of the game you want it to play, then you'll be successful. Because maybe it's not even on the super competitive level, but it can be on the lower levels to where you enjoy it and you learn more about the game. And I think at the end of the day, that's the best thing, is learning more about the game and just enjoying playing. Because if you're playing the top tier deck but you're not enjoying it, like, you're just trying to win. And if you play the mirror match and the person playing you knows it better, they're going to win, and it's going to be bad. So that's all I got to say. In the comments below, let me know what you guys think. Do you like creative decks? Name some creative decks. I'd like to hear a bunch of crazy ones. Leave video responses, anything you guys want to do, and I'll definitely look into those. I'm going to have a lot more topics coming on here. I'll probably do a discussion on Lightsworn just because it has to be done. The deck is going to be absolutely like ridiculous. Right now it's pretty crazy with Curry Bandit and, you know, just the Dragon Ruler, Lightsworn, all that stuff. But with the release of the structure deck, it's going to have even more power. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But that's all I got to say, you guys. Leave your comments below and your thoughts. Please leave some other discussion topics, some Slim Chat topics that I can include here, because I haven't done these videos in a while and I miss them. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Thumbs it up, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching.